well. But let's bring in one of our favorites to talk college football with, the great R.J. Young from Fox Sports, back on the drive on a Monday. R.J., how are you?
I'm getting there, brother. Wild weekend this week.
It was. And let's, this is rare that we actually will start with BYU instead of the University of Utah around these parts as of late. But 3-0, 3 wins against P5 teams. They're up to number 15, RJ. And I got to say, I'm very impressed with what Kalani has built down there and the way Aaron Roderick is calling plays and, forcing turnovers, making big plays. It's actually very Utah-ish, but your thoughts on the 3-0 BYU Cougars?
I think you also got to take into account that it's 2 back-to-back ranked wins for a BYU team that we all thought would be pretty down this year, especially after losing not just Zach Wilson, but the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft. And Kalani Sitake went back to the board, lost Jeff Grimes to Baylor, said it's fine, we're okay, I'm okay, and we're just going to go play a little bit of football. And when you look at their schedule, they ought to be favored in every game they play the rest of the way. Now, the Mountain West has become one of the most fun leagues here over the last few weeks. So you got a Utah State in there. You got a San Diego State that knocked off Utah. You have a Fresno State in there that I'm wildly excited about. So it feels like BYU runs the table. We're talking about them being in the college football playoff once again. But again, as you know, it's September. And my rule in September is always just survive and advance.
Well, Ute fans are experiencing something that's somewhat new, and it's a compliment to Kyle Whittingham that 2 losses has kind of really caught the fan base off guard. And look, we just discussed BYU. BYU might be really good. And San Diego State, I'll tell you what, I saw a big physical team that was well coached, ready to play. But Utah finds themselves at 1-2 now, heading into Pac-12 play. Your thoughts on the Utes?
That you still can go win a Pac-12 championship. And that's important, right? It's also that you lost to 2 teams that are undefeated, quiet as it's kept. Like San Diego State keeps winning, they're going to be in the top 25. So retroactively, at least in one of those, you're going to be playing against 2 ranked opponents, right? Is what we think. And depending on how things turn out, those 2 losses might actually still get you into a New Year's Six Bowl. Again, you got the Pac-12 championship to win. And if you can come out of the Pac-12 South with the USC that I thought was really good, already also suffering a loss so bad that their head coach gets fired, you still got everything to play for. Is it what you want? No. Everybody wants to go undefeated. But wouldn't you rather have these losses now than later?
Yes, absolutely. No, good point. And let's stick with the Pac-12 stuff for a minute, RJ, because unfortunately UCLA reverted back to being who they've been for a little while, a lot of hope, and then doesn't work out. You mentioned USC. They had a great win over the weekend, and a local kid, Jackson Dart, looked really good. And I think Arizona State is good. I think BYU is really good. I really do, and I think Arizona State just got beat. But as of today, RJ, how do you view the Pac-12 South?
It's really interesting because I thought it was just going to be the strength of the league before last week, and now we're talking about, Oregon being the only undefeated team left in there, and Arizona's bad. They lose to Northern Arizona over the weekend. Arizona State obviously catches that L. USC has a new quarterback plus the loss, but Jackson Dart is a stud, right? And that's one of the things we got to see against a bad Washington State football team, but for a true freshman to come out and do what he did, you see why he is National Player of the Year, and you can see that maybe people just need to keep going back to Corner Canyon and recruit quarterbacks because Zach Wilson comes out of there, Jackson Dart comes out of there. Maybe just line up next there, right? And that's a guy that Kalani Sitake would have loved to have gotten, but, how are you going to argue with USC over there? I think Utah's in a good spot. I think you're right in line with SC. I think you've seen the vulnerabilities of Arizona State. And UCLA, yeah, they lose to Fresno State, but it feels like Fresno State just got their number. They beat them in 2018, 2008, 2003. That's 4-0 this century for Fresno State against UCLA. It might just be a Fresno State thing, but I still think that this is going to be a wildly entertaining division because I think everybody is capable of beating everybody, and that's refreshing to see.
So we didn't learn anything new about Oregon over the weekend, beating Stony Brook, the Fighting Wolfie, the Seawolf, Stony Brook, the college football powerhouse. But where are you at with them as of right now, RJ? Because we've actually talked to you about what I perceive to be a mandate for the Pac-12, and that is find a banner-carrying school like a Pete Carroll USC or a Chip Kelly Oregon. Is Mario Cristobal's club that school this year? Are they for real?
They have to be. They have to be. They're the only one that didn't take an L. Like, we can make jokes about Stony Brook, right? We can even make jokes about them surviving Fresno State. But they did what they needed to do for this conference, let alone them. They went into Columbus, Ohio, where they hadn't had a home game in over 650 days, and they came back with a W. They came back with a pelt against the national runner-up last year. I don't know that you can do much better than that in September. What I find to be wildly interesting about this is that Pac-12 could be responsible for its own demise this year in that somebody jumps up and beats Oregon, kind of knocks you out of the college football playoff, or so it seems, right? Because there's clear sailing for a team like Oklahoma in the Big 12, which is, I think, where you're at right now. You're in a very Big 12 situation with the Pac-12 where you need your upper echelon best team to win out and beat everybody so that you look good nationally. Now, our team's going to still try to beat Oregon? Absolutely. I'm not implying that they won't. But I think that Oregon has to be that banner waver for this conference, whether people like it or not.
Before we move over to some bigger picture national college football stuff, RJ, I have not been able to speak to you since the announcement came down that BYU is Big 12 bound. Now, it's going to be a couple years, it's going to be 2023, I believe 2 years from now they'll be in the Big 12, but changes everything around here locally, and we're pretty excited about that for our landscape here in this market. But what are your thoughts on now that it's official, BYU going to the Big 12?
I think that I hesitated at first, and now I'm buying into it because this is a league that has wanted to be in the BYU business for a very long time. And now, thinking about it, we get the Baptist Beer Bowl, between Baylor and BYU. That's going to be a lot of fun. I hope Jeff Grimes is still around for that because, hey, now we got some rivalry ties there. I also enjoy that it's a fan base that is excited to join the Big 12. As a matter of fact, a couple weeks ago, did a segment in where I looked at it. Provo to Orlando is the new Big 12 footprint, right? So we're like 2,300 miles, and that's not a road trip. That's a migration, but that's going to get played. Provo to Morgantown, it's about 2,300 miles. It's going to be a true national conference. But I'm excited about it because I think BYU has proven over the last, I guess you got to say 10 years that they could play in this conference and that they could win this conference. And that's really what this is about. Did you add teams that can go win it? And I think you have with the BYU, with a Cincy, with the Central Florida. These are all very good football teams, and these are teams that expect to be playing for national championships here in the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, and I don't know where I would put Disney World on the list of things that LDS people love, RJ, but it's God, family, and then Disney World in there somewhere. So Mormon folk will go down to Orlando. I can guarantee you that. It's interesting. You brought up BYU potentially being favored moving forward. I was talking about this with my producer during the first segment. If they survive through Washington State in 5 games, what we would have, RJ, is Bronco Mendenhall and the University of Virginia in Provo on Halloween for BYU to stay clean. I mean, you and I are both in the business of content. Doesn't get much better than that.
Right, and you also have 2 quarterbacks in there that I'm excited about, right? Like, I hope that Jaron Hall's going to have it together for that, but I'm also looking over at Brendan Armstrong, and that dude's built for it, man. Like, they got railroaded by North Carolina, but they also put up a bunch of points, and I'm here for the points, right? And I would love to see Bronco Mendenhall have to actually bow up against BYU and see how Kalani Sitake and them respond to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun no matter what the records are. I think we already circled that game on the calendar. But if it comes down to Virginia and perhaps putting an end to this BYU winning streak, man, I don't know about you, but I got stuff to talk about for the next 3 days after that. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you what, it's a fan base, RJ. I don't know how familiar you are with the BYU fan base, but they have been, it's such a passionate, involved fan base, and they have been starving for something like this. And something like this is different than anything they did a year ago. I said earlier, I'm already more impressed at what BYU has done this year than anything they accomplished last year, if that makes sense.
I can see that, right? Because they put the schedule together on the fly. They played who they could play, and then they managed to put together what I think of as a memorable season, right? And even took a game like on a Wednesday to go play on a Saturday that ended up being one of the games of the year against Coastal Carolina last year. But when you see what they lost last year and then how they were expected to compete this year, yeah, I'm with you. It's wildly impressive. I want them to keep it, though, right? That's the thing. perhaps there was something to last year. Hey, we don't know what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, so let's just show up, play ball, and let's have fun each time we get an opportunity to do this, because it's not guaranteed to, all right, now we're going to put some expectations on you, right? This is where I love the sport of college football. No, I have them ranked 11th in my poll, for instance. Now, I'm going to put that on you. I want to see how you carry it. You asked for this, right? Now that you're hunted instead of hunting, let's see how you respond. And I think we're going to figure out some things about the Cougars.
So my parents are BYU alum, and I'm a Northeast boy, and I can remember it was like 93 or 94, RJ, where BYU played Penn State at Beaver Stadium. And so I've been there once, but over the weekend, just seeing that place jam-packed and watching Penn State beat Auburn, it reminds you of why this sport is so awesome. I don't have a dog in the fight, but wondering what your experience was watching that great college football game.
Man, they turn out in Happy Valley. When they say whiteout, that's exactly what they mean. And that's what I've gotten out of this year, most of all. Because I was at, say, Ohio State, Minnesota a few weeks ago. And Minnesota fans had packed that place in. And it's one of the best things about the sport. As a matter of fact, you know I live in the state of Oklahoma, where I say the Sooners are the pro team, right? 84,000 people being in the stands to yell at you changes the sport entirely, because we're more invested. Like you mentioned, your parents are BYU alumni. That means something. You don't have other teams, really, that you get to talk about with any sort of meaning at the dinner table. It's BYU football here year-round. I don't know that you get that feeling in any other sport, and because you only get 6 home games a year, it means that much more. And for Penn State to be able to get that W against Auburn, first time Auburn had traveled to a Big Ten stadium in 90 years, they might not be willing to do it again for another 90, but I so enjoyed that, especially coming down to the wire like it did. You got a one-score ball game. Everybody has everything to play for. That's what the sport's about for me, man.
All right, since you've seen them up close, I wasn't planning on asking you this question, but I'll put it as simply as I can. Is Ohio State good?
Oh, man. They're good like Oklahoma in 2018 was good. To say that means, hey, they're going to score. They're also going to get scored on. They're giving up 500 yards of offense a game, and they're putting up 500 yards of offense a game. Now, that's good enough to make the playoff. As you'll see with 2018 Oklahoma, is it good enough to win you a national championship? Absolutely not. That is the one thing. They got to figure out a way to shore up that defense. The difference between them today and Oklahoma 2018, though, is they got the talent to do it. So you get your scheme correct. You fix what is broken in that scheme, and I think you have the players to go and contend for a national championship, but you got to get it quick, fast, and in a hurry, because you're going to get to beat up on Akron this weekend, and then you go straight into a conference that is really gunning you, and you play in the second best division in all of football, Big Ten East, for my money. So I think they're good, but we'll find out just how good they are here in the next couple of weeks.
All right, different team, same question. Is Clemson good?
Man, I like to say yes, because they, quiet as it's kept, didn't allow a TD to be scored in that Georgia game, right? And this is a Georgia team that put up 40 on South Carolina, put up 56 on a good UAB. Defensively, they're good. I think if they get back to running the football, take the ball out of DJ Uiagalelei's hands a little more often, not because he can't do it, but because you want to be more balanced, more sound, and you got some absolute studs in the backfield. Yeah, I think they're good. They're also a one-loss team in a conference that doesn't have any ranked opponents left. That's their problem. Their problem is their watered-down schedule. It ain't that they're not good. It's that you took a loss early in what I expected to be a play-in game for you to make the playoff. I don't see a road to the playoff for them. That's really their issue. They'll probably show up in a New Year's Six Bowl and then browbeat somebody, but it stands to reason. You lose to what I think is going to be the second-best team in the SEC. You're not going to make the playoff. That's just what it is.
Give Florida a ton of credit for taking those haymakers and coming back and making it interesting, but give me your thoughts on Bama as of right now staying clean with a big road win.
No, man, like that's the kind of win you expect from a Nick Saban football team, right? They didn't play their best football. They were penalized a bunch. They couldn't run the football. But the way I also look at this is Florida hadn't played nobody, right? They gave up 20 to a South Florida team that North Carolina State blanked. All right, you're not gonna get anything past me with a Florida Atlantic win. You also had Alabama at home. You had them in a loaded swamp. If you're gonna beat them, and you keep telling me that you're as talented as that Alabama football team, now is the time. I don't care about your moral victory of your 2-point deficit there. Go get a W, and go get a definitive W with a Nick Saban team that is as down as it's ever going to be. All right? Like, if Saban is able to go and beat Florida 31-29 at the Swamp in the third game of the season to secure the Florida State Championship, I'm not going to pick against them. I'm also going to go to Florida. Now you only got one thing you have left to do, and that is to win the SEC East, get back to that thing, and then go get you a W against Alabama in the SEC Championship, because that's what it feels like it would have to be.
So it seems like every single year there's a big gap between the teams at the top and then the teams that are kind of second tier. It's usually top 4 or 5. But is it Bama and everybody else, or is there another team in the country that's at least in the same cul-de-sac?
It felt way more Bama than everybody else last week. But now I feel like it's Bama with, okay, if we can do what Florida did, which is to say you got the talent that Florida had, perhaps we can get to them. But no, man, it's still Alabama or the field, right? That's the way you have to look at this college football season. Are you more likely to take the field, or are you more likely to take Bama? And every time people say the field, Bama shows up to bite them. Like, put it this way. 2019 is a down year for Alabama. They had 4 of their front 7 at one time were hurt. They still went 11-2. Come on, man. They haven't lost a football game since November 30th, 2019. Perspective here. Arizona hasn't won a football game since October 5th, 2019. It's rolling down there in Tuscaloosa. I dare you to stop it. That's where we're at right now.
All right, before I set you loose, I just want you to answer the following question. The second best team in the Pac-12 is who and why?
The second best team in the Pac-12. Goodness me. Let's go Stanford. Right? Let's go Stanford, because their loss is to a K-State team that is undefeated, and they did it at a neutral site, and they got a good W, 42 points they put up on a USC team that I had picked to be there with Utah at the end playing for the Pac-12 Division Championship in the game a couple weeks from now. So let's go with Stanford for now. But that's a real problem, because the first thing that popped in my head, I got to say, man, is Fresno State. Like, that's where I went in my head. It's not even a team that's in the Pac-12, because as far as I'm concerned, Fresno State played a closer ball game to Oregon than Ohio State did. And that's where we are right now. You can't say Washington. They took a loss to Montana, right? No matter what they did to Arkansas State. You can't say Arizona State. They took a loss to BYU, who we did not expect to be this good. So it's hard to say anybody other than Stanford at this point for me, though I'm sure somebody at UCLA is like, yeah, we still beat LSU though, dog. And Colorado's saying, hey, we have a 3-point loss with a quarterback we can't trust to throw the football, who's also a true freshman, to the team that everybody keeps telling us is one of the top 5 in the country. You got a lot of horses in this fight, horses running this race right now, but I'm going to go with Stanford for the time being. I hope that satisfies.
I lied to you, RJ. I got to get one more out of you, because I remember you were awesome about a month back when I asked you about Charlie Brewer, because you had watched him play so much, and obviously he is a transfer who's now, well, I don't know that he's going to start this week, but for the second straight year, Utah goes to the transfer portal to try to find their starting quarterback, and I'm not sure it's going to work. Cameron Rising looked really good when he got in the fourth quarter. Are you surprised that Charlie has struggled to acclimate to Utah's system?
Yeah, 1-1 is his TD ratio, right? Pass to interception. But yep. I think if you brought in a Charlie Brewer and you get Cam Rising to do what he did in the fourth quarter, it's a win for you. Because Cam Rising has been there the whole time, and nobody saw that kind of play from him. That's the reason you go into the transfer portal, to go get a Charlie Brewer. I think right now the problem that you have if you are Kyle Whittingham is you don't know who your starting quarterback is, and you really want one of those guys to take it for themselves. That's what you're waiting on. I don't know that Cam is going to be the guy by the end of this year, but it would not surprise me to see that he gets the next start, just to see what you got and to see if he actually can take ownership of this thing.
RJ, thanks, man, for the time. You're one of our favorites to chop it up with about one of the greatest sports on earth. So stay safe, be well, man. We'll chat soon, okay?
I appreciate you, brother. Have a good afternoon. What do you think about football?
I like it. I'm Devin Laurel's daughter. I am RJ's goddaughter. Yes, I got a sister. She's Laurel's daughter too, and she's RJ's goddaughter too.
Mm-hmm. Now we got to wait for the phone.
Do you like football? If you do, keep watching these videos.
Thank you.
But if you like other sports, watch other videos from RJ and other people.
Yeah.
If you like other sports, you can find other RJ videos with other sports. But we usually do it with football because that's his favorite sport.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't I want to know my favorite sport? If you want to, it's soccer because I haven't played in a while and I really like it.